Hey everyone, welcome to NimsTuts, the tutorial show where we teach you how to build something awesome in Minecraft. Today we'll be looking at the first of its kind, a large-scale, fully automatic potato and carrot farm. This takes advantage of the new 1.8 villager AI to automatically replant our farms for us. That means this is a set it and forget it type farm, requiring absolutely zero maintenance, just an endless supply of produce. The rates are also very good, yielding around 50 items per hour per layer. We'll take a look at this here in a bit. With just a few extra layers, you could be looking at hundreds, if not thousands, of items per hour. In step 1, we're going to be building a 9x9 platform. I'm going to come out here a little bit and I'm going to do this 4 blocks up into the air. You can do this right on the ground, but just be aware that you are going to need to dig a little bit out underneath it. So the first thing that you want to do for building this 9x9 platform is put 4 blocks of glowstone around that center block. Then on each glowstone, you're going to extend it out 3 more dirt blocks, just like so, and this will give us our 9x9 sort of area here. Then just fill this all in, and once you get to the corner, we're going to be using an upward facing dispenser. So now just repeat this pattern again for all 3 other sides, and you'll be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and fill this in, and we'll check in a second. Once you're done, you should have something that looks like this. Next, we need to worry about hydrating all of this. So we're going to come 1 block in from that outside dispenser and add a little pouch off the side in order to house our water. Bringing a few buckets of water is good, or you could also bring a ton of ice. That might make it a little bit easier on you. So I'm going to do 2 of these regular ones on camera so that way you understand how they work. Just off the side, 1 block in from that dispenser. So there we go. Now I want this side to be my front display. So instead of using a regular solid aesthetic block, I'm going to be using glass so that way I can see in and, well, creep on my villagers as they do my labor for me. So it works exactly the same. I just build the same shape out of glass and then fill it in with water. Now that you've got your water pouches added, we're going to be adding 2 high walls around the entire structure, skipping the corners there. For this, I'm just going to show you how I do the front, and I'm just going to be using glass, again, so that way I can see in and creep on that villager, and then just continue building this 2 high wall all around the structure. And then just for aesthetics, I do like to bring this 1 block forward so that way we don't have that weird shape. You can still see in just fine, and it makes it look a little bit better. So again, just finish filling in the entire structure with 2 high walls. In step 2, we're going to be adding the ceiling and our first villager. Now, the first thing that we need to note about the ceiling is if you want 1 layer or multiple layers. So first, keep in mind that with every single layer, you're going to get about 50 items per hour. That's averaged. It varies a lot, and we'll discuss that here more in a little bit. But if you want just a single layer, just a regular aesthetic solid block will do fine for a ceiling. If you want more than 1 layer, you are going to want to build this ceiling out of dirt. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come in just a couple blocks, and we're going to make a donut shape around this center hole. Then we need to take upside down half slabs and place them like this in kind of a plus pattern directly above that glowstone. So now there is no way that I can fall down that hole. If you've done that, great. So then we're going to pause on the rest of that ceiling, and we're going to come over here and look at what villagers will work inside of this fully automatic potato and carrot farm. So we need to look at these 5 villager types. We've got a librarian, a blacksmith, a farmer, a butcher, and a priest. As you would expect, only the farmer villager will actually farm and plant your automatic farm here, as kind of expected. A priest over there, a librarian, a blacksmith, and a butcher will not work. It has to be just this regular, simple robe brown villager. If he's got a black apron or a white apron, it will not work. So a simple brown robe is what you're looking for. And now that you've got that farmer villager moved into your produce farm, and it doesn't matter if it says he's a farmer or any other subtype, it just has to be the brown robed villager. Once you've completed that, you can finish your ceiling here. So again, I'm going to be using multiple layers for the sake of this tutorial. So I'll be filling this all in with dirt. If you are only planning on building one layer, which if it's just you by yourself in like single player and you don't plan on selling this to a villager, one layer will be more than enough food for you. You can replace all this dirt with solid blocks. Again, otherwise you will want to use solid blocks here. In step 3, we're going to be adding our collection point. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to build one block out from the very center here and add our chest. Then running into that chest, we're just going to have a stream of hoppers. I'm using shift to place these down and just continue placing the stream of hoppers until we are directly below this hole. You could also have just one hopper feeding downward into a chest, but this is where we're going to be putting a lot of wiring. You're going to have to run through that every time if you want your chest down there. For just a few extra hoppers, we can have a nice clean collection point. Now you can jazz this up aesthetically however you'd like. In the next step, we're going to be needing 4 buckets of water and a couple of solid blocks. We're going to be messing with our dispensers. So the first thing we're going to be doing, and we'll split this up into the front-facing dispensers and the rear dispensers. So in the front dispensers, is like all dispensers, we're going to be adding a bucket of water. Then we need a red block here, and that's to represent this block must become powered in order to power our dispenser. And then we're going to be placing a green block, which is representative of a pattern that we're going to use to always indicate that it needs to have redstone dust on it. So now you can see if this redstone were to become powered somehow, it would then power this redstone block, which would cause our dispenser to dispense the water. So I'll do it once more quickly here. So we're going to be adding water bucket inside the dispenser, then a block here to indicate that that needs to receive power, then a green block to say that this must have redstone on it. So now you can see if this redstone, or if this red block here were to be powered, it would dispense our water. So now let's look at the pattern we're going to be using in the back. Similarly, but a little different, we're going to be using 2 blocks of redstone, or excuse me, 2 blocks of red hardened clay and then 1 block of green, and we're going to be putting our redstone there. And again, once more quickly, the water, 2 red blocks, 1 green block. That green block has redstone on top of it. Next, we're going to be looking at how we power those dispensers. So the pattern I'm going to be using is not the most efficient pattern for a single layer, and it isn't honestly the most efficient pattern for multiple layers, but it is a very easy to recognize and very easy repeatable pattern, so it will work for both, and it will be very easy to replicate. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to come 1 block in front of and 1 block up off the ground, and we're going to be causing a redstone alternating pillar like so. So you can see here we've got redstone torch on a block, redstone torch, and then you can guess it, redstone torch, block, redstone torch, etc., all the way up as high as you need. So then on the front of this, we're going to be placing another redstone torch here, so that way this redstone torch and this redstone torch should be in the same state. You can see that once this redstone torch were to become powered, it would power this block, which would then power this redstone, which would power either one of these, it doesn't really matter, which would then power our dispenser, causing it to dispense the water. At the same time, this torch, when it becomes powered, we're going to be laying down a chain of redstone here into a repeater, and that repeater then will feed into a solid block. When this solid block becomes powered, it will also cause this redstone dust here to become powered, which will cause this block to become powered, which will cause this dispenser to dispense the water. So I'll do it once more quickly on the second side. So we're going to be coming 1 block in front of and 1 block down, and causing this redstone chain here like so, and then just continue building this up. Wonderfully done. Then a redstone torch in front, a few blocks of a few lines of redstone here, repeater facing into a solid block, and there you go. That's how we're going to power a single layer. In step 5, we're going to be building the timing behind this farm. We're not going to be relying on the villager automatic harvesting because, well, he's really selfish and only cares about himself. We want this farm to work for us, which is why we're using the dispensers with water in it. Now we need to set up the timing behind that. So we're going to start here underneath the first dirt layer and build a hopper timer. That starts off with 2 hoppers facing into each other, then a comparator out of both sides into a solid block, redstone in front of both those solid blocks, then sticky pistons next to that with a block of redstone in the middle. Now we need to add 64 items into one of the hoppers. That's very important that it is 64 items. So then out of that block of redstone, we're going to be placing a redstone dust into a solid block. Off the redstone dust, we're going to be placing a off the solid block, we're going to be placing a dropper. Very important that it's a dropper facing into a hopper, that hopper facing back into the dropper. Then we need to add comparators out of the sides of those into inverters. So then we should have a couple of torches that look like that. Next, we're going to build a 2-high stack like so, and place a redstone torch with redstone dust under it. This is acting as our multiplier, by the way. Then we need to take the top of that redstone torch and run it out like this. And then we need to take this torch here and run it into the bottom. And then, oh, almost forgot one thing. We need to add another torch there. So now into this multiplier, we're going to be adding 60 items. And again, it's very important that you use 60 items. So 64 here and 60 here. Now, how this is going to work. So this farm will count, or this clock will count to 64, and then it'll trigger 1. And then it'll count to 64 again. Actually, it's going to be counting to 128 since it's got to go through both sides. So it'll count to 128 and then count 1. And then it'll count to 128 again and count 2. So it's going to do that 60 times, which will give us about 50 minutes. So just under a single hour. And see there, you can see the first item has moved over. That's very important. It'll give the majority of our crop time to grow while also allowing time for the villager to replant it all and everything and yada 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 like that. So now we need to hook up the clock and the multiplier to our farm. That's relatively easy to do. We're going to be taking this torch here, and we're going, let's actually use a repeater. We're going to be taking the output of this torch and the output of this torch, and it's important to use repeaters here because we don't want this signal looping back on itself. So we're going to be using some repeaters here, then connect the output of those repeaters, and so this line here is now what's going to control our farm. So this is pretty easy to handle from there. We're just going to take this up and cause it to shut off this torch and do the same on this side. Now, if you've done anything fancy with your spacing, just be sure that, for example, this torch isn't powering this hopper because that'll stop your drops. Just make sure that your spacing is all correct and make sure that this output line, so there should actually be 2 outputs, this repeater and this repeater. Make sure that they are both into the same line and that they are both powering the 2 sides. So now you can see that whenever a output happens, and we can go ahead and actually emulate that. So I'll show you how to emulate it. Let's take all but a single block out of here, and then once this is done counting, and it is almost done, we're going to see this update. There we go. Everything just updated, and now you should have a bunch of water flowing out of your farm. Now this multiplier is emptying itself. It's resetting itself. It's putting all the blocks out of the hopper back into the dropper. And it's also important that this multiplier has fewer blocks than your original counter if you want to modify it. I would really recommend sticking with the 64 and 60 as I've already done. So then once it counts to 128, which is about a minute, just under a minute, it'll send another signal out of the other repeater here, which will shut off the water and that will act as the reset for the farm. That will happen about once every 50 minutes, give or take like 30 seconds or so. In what is the last step for a single layer, we are going to be setting up the final stages of the farm. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to break back inside. I'd recommend bringing an ender pearl for easy escape. And we're going to first address something we kind of forgot earlier. Let's add a little bit more lighting to just make sure that the farm is bright enough. And everywhere that I've used glowstone, you could also use jack-o'-lanterns, as they are much cheaper. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I am going to till all the land. Then once your land is completely tilled, we need to look at how the villager planting works. So I would recommend being a very soft word for it is practically required to give him at least 2 full stacks of either potato or carrot. I'm going to be using potatoes in this case. So we need to buffer his inventory. This farm has 72 slots per layer. If he cannot replant all of that, his inventory will eventually die out, and it will break the farm because he will just have nothing to replant that with. So it's also important to say that he has his own inventory. Oop, did not mean to right click him. He has his own inventory. It is 8 stacks, which means that whenever this farm harvests, he could steal a large portion of your crop. So whenever I was speaking earlier of around 50 items per hour per layer, this is where the variable is. He has 8 inventory slots as far as my testing has found, and this is subject to change, but he has 8 slots, which is 64 multiplied by 8. So he could steal quite a lot of your crop. So that's where the variance comes in for each layer. You could have sometimes you're only getting 10 items per layer per harvest, and probably the following time after that you might get 150 per layer. So it averages out, like I said. So now that we've looked at that, we're going to be giving him 2 stacks of potato. We can see that he absorbs that near immediately. And then once his AI detects, oh hey, there's available farm ground, he'll begin planting. So then we need to also discuss how his planting algorithm works. If there is a nearby village, he will only plant within this farm whatever is within range of this village. So if you see him only planting like a corner or like 3 blocks out from a wall, that means that he's detecting some nearby village, and only those few blocks are within range of that village, so that's all he's going to plant. So it's either best if you have this entire farm built within a village, or have the entire farm built far enough away from a village that there is no way that his AI could detect that village and thus interfere with his farming. So the last thing that I wanted to show you here is, again, that variance in rates. So right now he is planting away. He's probably got about half the farm done, which means that he's gone through 36 blocks. And then you see he just absorbed another 64. He doesn't need those. He didn't need to pick them up. He's got more than enough here to plant the entire farm, everything that's within available range, but he will. He will always take extra blocks, and that's good for the farm because it means that he'll never run out of inventory as soon as he has, again, that original 128 items that we gave him. But it's also bad for our rates because he might take what he doesn't need. So just be aware, again, I can't stress this enough, that there will be variance in your rates. It will vary from anywhere from potentially as low as 10 items per layer per harvest up to 150 items per layer per harvest. So just keep that in mind when you are doing your testing, and more than likely your first few harvests, because this guy is going to steal so much, your first few harvests will be relatively small, anywhere from, again, 10 to 30 items per layer. Now once he's got his inventory totally buffered, that's when you're going to start to see your biggest returns per layer, and that's going to be in the upwards of 50 to 100 items per layer per harvest, which is per harvest is about once an hour, like I said. So keep this in mind before you leave comments. It is highly variable, all based on this dude's inventory. So that's it. That's all there is for a single layer. Now we're going to quickly look at how we would build multiple layers. This is a very easy repeating pattern. I've got this set up in such a way that you can just basically copy paste this thing on top of itself from the second layer onward, of course. So we're going to replace a couple of blocks here with some sort of lighting like we did before. Glowstone or pumpkin both work. Then we need to make sure that the corners are those upward facing dispensers, just like before. I'm not going to do this on camera as it will take too much time, but do make sure that these dispensers all have water in them. Then we're going to be taking a couple of blocks, one block in like this, and we're going to be creating more water pouches. I'll go ahead and do that on each and every side. And now you've got those water pouches in place. Of course, you're going to be adding your walls just like before, so we need 2 high walls. And again, I'm going to buffer this front one out with glass, 1 more, and then just continue that all the way around your entire farm. Once you've got those walls completed, we then need to look at how we're going to power these upward dispenser layers. So we're first going to come off the front ones here, add some more clay, and then just like that, and okay, good. It's a good thing I didn't put my water in there yet. So now you can see whenever this repeater were to power this block, this will shut off, which will turn this on, just like everything else. Now you don't want to continue this one up. For the third layer, you'll want to do this again. You'll want to have the torch come off the side with a bunch of redstone dust with a repeater, and then repeat this for layer 3. Repeat this for layer 3, then you'll want to repeat this for layer 4, then layer 5 will be this again. Layer 6 will be like that. So again, I'll do this once more quickly. On this side, so we'll come up 1, then into a block, then off the side. Okay, good. There was nothing in there. Then how we power the back dispenser is we're just going to continue this path all the way up. So block, then torch. I should have put these on easier to obtain blocks. And let's just do this actually real quick so that way we can see again. So there's green, there's red, red. So then we're going to have block, torch, and then always on the green, remember there's the redstone. So that's how we would power the second layer. And then the third layer will just continue up, and the third layer will look like this. Essentially every odd layer will look like the first layer, and every even layer will look like the second layer. So again, once more quickly on the back, we're just going to continue to grow this upwards. So block, block. I'm going to put my reds down and my greens down, and those don't have to be red and green. I'm just using them so you can see what's actually happening. And then always on the green, you put that redstone. So now whenever all of this would be toggled, this green is going to update the red. Green is going to update the red, and then off the front, we're going to do it a little bit differently. So here, then here, and so everything would update. And that is going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe for this fully automatic 1.8 potato and carrot farm. This has been NimsTuts, and hopefully it didn't stink. We'll see you next time, everyone.